few days ago, everyone's favorite former president, Barack Obama, was speaking at this event in Pennsylvania, a little forum for, I guess, the Jefferson Society. And his comments where he condemned Charlie Kirk's shooting were well reported on. And I would say I agree with what he said. But what was not talked about, what almost went over everyone's head, was him being heckled a few times during this hour-long presentation. So I'm going to play the clip and then we'll get into why it's significant.
And that's a dangerous set of ideas. This idea that somehow we can go back to a system in which just some of us count, or some of us count more than others. They do. But
quiet.
Well, now here's the thing we have to do. Would you like to come up and take the mic? I'm not making light of this, right? But here's the. I'm happy to talk about this if it's a part of the question. But again, some rules around how we talk. Well, yes, there are disasters and catastrophes everywhere, sir.
Please, please, please.
Sir, I'm not the President of the United States currently. So there's no point in shouting at me. There's no point in shouting at me about it. I'm not in charge of foreign policy currently.
Please.
Well, there you go.
Now, back in either April or May, Biden gave his first speech since leaving the presidency. And I was showing it to one of my relatives because it was very interesting to me to kind of see him, in his first remarks since leaving office, what he was going to talk about. And of course, it's the usual, bashing your successor and having an issue with what he is doing. And this relative said, oh, he can't do anything now. He's out of there. And I was, in hearing Obama's response to the protester, right, by saying, oh, I am no longer the president. I don't have control over foreign policy. I was taken aback to those comments. Now, about 5 months ago, I did a video called, and it wasn't a well-seen video, so if you didn't see it, it's whatever. Why would I want power if I can't do anything with it? And while airheads in the comment section like Michael's Takes weren't able to understand what I was saying, I questioned where would it be appealing to me to have the things that we commonly associate with influence, whether that be fame or some extravagant amount of finances, wealth, to have those things, but then not be able to use them in the ways in which I would deem important or appealing to have them go towards. Now, Obama's a former president, but he's a former president whose net worth is 70 million. He's a former president who on Twitter has 130 million followers, on Instagram has over 30 million followers. This is someone who, whether he's holding office or not, has one of the most influential voices, certainly in American politics, and I'd argue across the world. It's no exaggeration to say that when Obama tweets something, 1 million people see it automatically because there's just so many people following him. So how much would it cost for Obama, with his net worth of 70 million, to put out a video or some official statement condemning the genocide in Gaza? And look, he's flapped his gums before, right? Said something here or there. But really think about this. With the net worth that he has, he can get on a plane anytime he wants. He can travel anywhere he wants. He admitted during this very long forum, I watched the entirety of it, that he doesn't really have an official work day. And I guess what I'm frustrated by is that, I did this video last year where I talked about him as being on his way to becoming one of the worst ex-presidents ever. And it was about how someone with this level of public support and influence sitting on that every year and just wasting it is unacceptable. And it certainly isn't a matter of, oh, I'm retired and I just want to stay out of politics, because he was flapping his gums, talking trash about Trump and campaigning in the midterms. So, what I'm upset by is that he doesn't take his power and use it for something that actually helps the Americans that he claims to care so much about. And an issue that has clearly been affecting Americans is the conflict between Israel and Hamas. This is the biggest foreign policy issue, arguably, of the last 3 years, um, possibly the last 10. The only contender, the only one that could probably be debated as being significant, is the Ukraine war, and that still hasn't seen anywhere near the amount of protests that Gaza has received. And just for a second, imagine Obama. And for him, this would cost nothing. We had Kirk going on this speaking tour, and of course, I want to stress this: I don't want Obama to be in any kind of public danger. He could do, indoor events, make sure they have security guards, and just check to see that people aren't carrying anything on them that they can't, you know, make sure they find a way to they would be able to sneak in there. But imagine Obama going across the U.S. to these different college campuses with his great oratorical skills and going, you know, we older Americans need to take a lesson from these younger ones who are very clearly devastated by the issues with Hamas and with the way that they're being, that we condemn what they've done, but we also have to recognize that Israel has destroyed the lives of people. Imagine how much of a boost that would be for the anti-war side to have one of the most eloquent, well-known speakers across the world go to these different campuses, validate the cause of the people who are against war, and side with them in this conflict. So you got to remember, a lot of people were afraid to speak about Gaza or be like pro-Palestine because, oh, I'm worried that, I might lose my job or there will be some kind of financial retaliation. Obama is a millionaire whose net worth ranges around 70 million. This is not someone who's worried about, not having a place to stay tomorrow night because he said Netanyahu needs to go. And that's what's so sad. It would cost him almost nothing to do this, to go on some public speaking tour promoting the cause of peace and the fair treatment of Palestinians. At worst, he would get some Republicans calling him anti Semitic, but they call every single person who criticizes Israel that, so that's really not a big deal. And it's really disappointing when you consider that he stated that he wanted his time out of the White House to be more consequential than his time in it. And I think this is a very clear way in which that could be achieved. But of course, he won't do that because he is apathetic to the suffering of his fellow human being. I mean, remember, this is a guy who is against single payer health care, against free college. Of course, his kids don't have to worry about, not having health care, not being able to afford going to school. Their dad's a, millionaire several times over. But it makes sense that someone like that would look at the suffering of people in another country and go, hey, who gives a damn? Not to mention that he himself is a participator in genocide. I mean, let's not forget our friends in Yemen. But really, that's what's so infuriating about his response, that he gets to deny being able to do anything because he's out of office, when in fact being out of office and having the resources that he does would theoretically make him among the people most well equipped to do something. Like, I could not picture myself with 130 million Twitter followers, 30 million Instagram followers, 70 million as my net worth, and I can't do anything about Gaza. I can't say anything. I can't go on a speaking tour. I can't run an ad on TV. I just my hands are tied. I'm not the president. Obama is probably going to have a post-presidency that could range anywhere from 30 to 50 years. I hope the man stays in good health. I genuinely mean that. And in that possible quarter century of retirement, he is going to get away with basically doing nothing. He'll write the second half of his memoirs and make a building and other monuments to himself, and he'll be seen as this symbol of excellence because, oh, the first black president, and probably the only one we'll ever have because of how backwards things are going in the US. But no one will ever say, why did that extremely articulate, smart, great orator decide to have such deafening silence on one of the main foreign policy issues of the last 10 years? And the answer to that question is that he is beneath the darker complexion than most American politicians, just another self centered individual who is only interested in being involved with American politics for the sake of enrichment and personal ambition. The fate of others be damned. When people don't want to do something, they will find any and every excuse to either convince you or themselves for why something prevents them from doing more. When Obama was president, we were told that Republicans were blocking his agenda. But what of his retirement? Is Mitch McConnell holding his cell phone hostage to prevent him from tweeting about Gaza? Is Paul Ryan sitting on his computer to stop him from doing a live stream on the need for Palestinians to be treated like human beings? Is John Boehner dangling his bank account over a bridge to prevent him from flying to these college campuses and joining with the activists? I want to end with a question. If you had power, specifically tens of millions of dollars and tens of millions of followers on Twitter and Instagram, would you use it to promote causes that benefited others? Or would you just sit on it like he does?